Hey Dale, can you help Sean Busey join in? Okay, just get online windows. All right, thanks everyone for coming. Today we're going to talk about the street use hourly rate and fee updates. First, I'm going to start with other updates just so it doesn't get buried. We'll talk about our hourly rate and permit fee updates. So we'll start on January 1st. We're going to go through use fees and how they work. And then we're going to go over our new total days and right-of-way field. That's going to be the new way to calculate use fees. Remind you of some new and updated help articles, virtual coaching, how to get help, and then any other further questions. Just a reminder that please try and just use the Q&A chat for this session so that our SMEs can respond to you while I'm presenting. If you want to be unmuted, just request that in the chat and I'll unmute you. Okay, so other updates for off-hour inspection requests, the inspectors are asking that when you email them, please include all of this information. So your permit number, address, location, hours of work, dates of work, and if you're working in a hub, confirmation that coordination has been approved. One new exciting thing that you've hopefully have already seen on the portal is a new tab on the record itself called Required Documents and Conditions. This is our way to help with the confusion between the relationship between conditions and documents. We use conditions in Accela to request a new or revised document, request additional information via document, and then we also use them to inform when an activity has been applied to the record. So this tab, if you click on it in the portal, there'll be two sections. One is required documents. We call those conditions of approvals. So in this section, you'll see that there's documents that are needing to be submitted. It says pending. If it says pending or update required, there's action on your part. So that's where you'll find required documents. Once you upload that to the same name as the condition of approval name, it will no longer say pending. It will say received. And then you have just a conditions section, which is just really information only. This hub coordination condition is new. We'll talk about that in a minute. If you submit a withdrawal request, that's where you'll find that condition. Others could be deviation or something like that that would fall under this bucket. This information can be found on our How to Respond to Corrections help article. And then coming soon, this hub coordination condition will start showing up on your records. It's the same information that you'll see in .maps, but we also wanted it on the record itself since technically the record is the enforcement tool, and we want everything on the enforcement tool. So when the initial hub coordination dates will be on the use code lines for the first issuance. And then after the first issuance, there are often times that you need to work directly with the hub coordinator on getting any sort of scheduled changes approved. So that is when those instances are going to be documented in this hub coordination. For now, that may change. We're still trying to figure out the business process around it. It might be used for all hub coordination instances, but we'll let you know as that starts forming. I just kind of want to give you a heads up that that's coming next year and probably before our next webinar. Any questions on any of that? Okay, so let's move on to fees. I want to give just a quick background. We have three buckets of fees. In street use, we have permit fees. This is the issuant, amendment, or renewal fee. We use these fees to recover administrative time and some review time. So there are some groups within street use that do not charge review time, and that time is all captured in the permit fees. Hourly rate, that is review and inspection time. It's, it's used to recover the time to facilitate that work and the overhead around that. And then we have our discretionary use and occupation fees. These are fees for non-transportation uses of the right-of-way. They are used to encourage shorter and more efficient use of the right-of-way. So our goals for the rate and permit fee updates is to ensure full cost recovery, to maintain service levels and reduce reliance on subsidies with use fees and occupation fees. Align updates with policy goals to support businesses, homeowners, affordable housing, and improved livable communities. At a high level, this is what we're changing. For construction and utility permits, we're updating to the full or partial full cost recovery. We haven't done a cost recovery analysis since 2017. For public activation and maintenance permits, we are only updating um, between the 2019 and 2021 annual wage increase. And same with the hourly rate. So we're not doing full cost recovery there, which means those permits will remain subsidized by use fees. So if we kind of look at a snapshot of where this is taking us, our current cost recovery has us 27% in subsidizing with use fees. That means 27% of the staff doing that work is not being recovered by permit fees or hourly rates, and 9% occupation fees. And you can expect that occupation fees, which is recovered from our public space management group, those have gone down significantly through the pandemic. So we don't have that much to subsidize with. So our goal is to reduce our subsidies and try to recover as staff costs through our permit fees and hourly rates. So for the proposed fees and rates, we have improved that slightly, especially in the issuance fee realm. We're going from 18% to 32%, and we've greatly reduced our subsidy on use fees and slightly reduced it in occupation fees as well. So we are moving closer to our goal, but again, we're not updating to full cost recovery, which is why you still see some subsidies here. And we also want to support free permitting in the areas that we have free permitting in. Okay, so let's look at how these fees are changing. So the hourly rate, again, we're just updating by the annual wage increase over the last few years. So the current rate is $278. The proposed rate is 305. So the difference is 27. The overtime rate would just be double this. For permit fees, our permit fees are much more complicated. We have a lot. This is kind of how they're changing by permit type or permit category. So for our maintenance and kind of public space management, they're only going up by AWI. So you'll see a slight increase here. For construction and utility permits under the right-of-way M umbrella, they're going up by almost double, right? So we are trying to recover our cost here because this group that reviews these permits does not charge review time. So please note that this fee includes everything, all the time it takes to administer, review, and issue these permits. You'll see the biggest increases in the major permits like street vacations and utility major and street improvement. Those are going up. This is partial full recovery increase. And also please note we have a new street improvement light fee that'll start on January 1 as well. And that fee is significantly lower because the scope of work is lower. Our amendment fee is going up by $90. This is a partial cost recovery on the low side because eventually we're going to have to separate the date change extension and revision amendment fees, and we're going to take a look at that next year. So this didn't go up too much because the level of effort for date change and extension amendments is not as significant as revision. So we had to do that kind of balance with that. Any questions on that? Okay, so let's talk about use fees. Use fees are charged for non-transportation uses. The use types that incur use fees are only found on the right-of-way construction, heavy crane, minor utility, and utility major permits. Right. There's some uses on right-of-way construction that do not incur use fees, like miscellaneous or something like that, but most of them do. Okay, and you can find this information in table B3 of our use fee schedule on what uses charge use fees. Okay, so the other, there's lots of variables that influence use fees. Type of street, so arterial versus non-arterial, location, if you're in an urban zone versus residential, type of mobility impact, sidewalk, travel lane, or alley, type of closure, so if it's closed, if it's intermittently closed, or if it's reduced width, those will have different impacts on your use fees. Time and the right-of-way. So current use code table uses duration plus workdays, but we're changing that as of tomorrow. And we'll talk about that later. And then duration of time in the right-of-way. That's the escalation rate, which is tracked by the rate start date. So in table B1 here, the use fee schedule, you'll see these additional factors on the use fees, right? So if you're urban center or urban village, you are getting charged more than if you're in neither. If you're on arterial versus non-arterial or alley, makes a difference. If you're closing a transit lane, bike lane, or ped lane, there's an impact there. And if you're reducing the width of a ped lane or sidewalk, there's a minor impact there as well. So the terminology we use in the use fee methodology is not the terminology we use in Accela. And so I thought I'd go over that really quick. Sorry, I'm getting pinged. Everyone's in hissy. Okay, so let's talk about mobility and closure types in Accela. So in Accela, you'll see these kinds of things: sidewalk impact, bike lane impact, general purpose lanes impact, transit lane impact, parking lane impact, other right-of-way impact. Under each of these mobility impacts, you'll have a different selection of closure types here. We should probably be familiar with these by now. And then in this table, we kind of go over the definition of each of those closure types. right? So what does intermittent closure means? Short term, less than 5 minute closures, 3 times or less an hour to stop the traveling public using a flag or UPO. Reduced width, that's equivalent to impacted on the use fee schedule table. For sidewalks, we mean partial sidewalk closure with at least 4-foot pedestrian pathway per ADA or 8 feet in urban centers. So if you're not providing this minimum width, we consider that closed because if people can't use the pedestrian pathway, then it's closed. For general purpose lanes, it's reduced width travel while still maintaining vehicular traffic. So typically, our transportation ops division will only allow you to go down to 11 feet, depending on where you're at. Closed is the traveling public cannot access it. Rerouted is the traveling public is still using that area, but in a different way from the original intent. For instance, we oftentimes use the parking lane to reroute pedestrians. All lanes closed is on a street, you're closing the whole street. Some lanes closed is on a street, you're closing some lanes, right? We kind of, for the other right-of-way, we kind of grouped all the other pieces of the street segment, the planting strip, gravel shoulder, filler, etc., under our other right-of-way category. And for that section, there's only a yes or a no. Either you're impacting it or you're not. So then over here, there's a column that says, are use fees charged for that particular type of closure? Obviously for closed, yes. Reduced width, yes. Right. As you go down the line. And then is there an additional modal priority factor per the table we just went over in the use fee schedule? For reduced width, it is yes only for sidewalks. And then for closed, it's yes for sidewalks, transit lanes, and bike lanes. Any questions so far? Okay, and so the other thing that will impact use fees is time and right-of-way. So we do have an escalation rate. This escalation rate has not changed over the years. It's been the same since we implemented use fees in 2005. The escalation rate is captured by the rate start date in Accela. If a project clears a frontage for a period, the RSD will continue from where it left. It does not reset. This was a change in the 2019 use fee methodology update. I just want to highlight that the escalation rate is different for arterials and non-arterials. The first 30 days on non-arterials do not incur use fees. The higher the rate start date, the higher their use fees. And we do have a max for both arterial and non-arterial. Any questions there? Jennifer, you had a question on, is the community getting notified of permit fee changes? The community. Well, all our applicants that pay for our fees are getting notified. We have not slated this for a blog post. We typically don't do that for our fee updates. Okay. So let's talk about another way to track time in right-of-way. So just a reminder that the 2019 use fee methodology replaced the old 10-day increments of tracking time in the right-of-way to every day. So in our release 2 Accela implementation, we had this new work days option here that you would be able to select every day, weekdays only, or weekends only. In addition to that, we had duration, right? So starting to as of today until tomorrow, we track calculating use fees with a combination of duration and what work days selection you get. But this does not allow projects to easily track work that only impacts the right-of-way for partial weekdays, and we are not meeting the intent of the use fee methodology since we are allowing the ability to track by every day, not in just 5-day increments. So we designed a new way to track that, and it's a field that's called total days in right-of-way. So starting tomorrow, this field will be the way to calculate use fees and track how many days you're working in the right-of-way. Okay, so in the portal, this is what it will look like. In addition to adding the new total days in right-of-way, we are going to have a new, oh, sorry, this is just a different way. This is what it looks like today, right? So if you go on work days, you see every day, weekdays, weekends only. Starting tomorrow, it's going to look like this, all right? So you have the new total days in right-of-way field, and you also have a new selection under work days called partial week, right? So starting tomorrow, the new total days in right-of-way will be what you select as the number of days you're working in the right-of-way. It's going to be the field that calculates your use fees. And just a reminder that this is not required for SIP or right-of-way maintenance records because they don't incur use fees. And then the partial week option under workdays is very helpful to use, but is now just informational only. The duration field is still here and still required. You can put the project timeline here, but it only influences the use expiration date. We're going to get really deep into this. Okay, so let's talk about what is happening on existing permits with this change. So if you have an existing permit that's in process, it is not at the issuance step, it's going to get a one-time update. If you have an existing permit that is already at the issuance step and the fees have already been calculated, there is no update there. So that one-time script that will happen tomorrow on existing permits that aren't at the issuance step will get an update to convert from calculating use fees with duration of work days to calculating use fees with total days in right-of-way. And these are some examples of how we're calculating that. Exceptions, again, is if your permit's at the issuance step, either waiting for payment or issued. If there's a withdrawal request or a void request or canceled amendments. And then, of course, closed records won't get any update. Any questions so far? Okay. So now we're going to really dive into what is the difference between duration and total days in right-of-way, because it is going to be a little confusing at first. So duration, if you click the little question mark here, this is the text that you'll see. Enter the total number of calendar days needed to complete work in the right-of-way. For example, if work starts on Monday and ends 2 weeks later, on Thursday the duration is 11. This is used to calculate the use expiration date. For total days in right-of-way, if you click the little question mark here, it'll say enter the actual number of days you'll be using the right-of-way For example, if you're using the right-of-way Monday through Thursday for 2 weeks, the total days in right-of-way is 8. This number cannot exceed the duration. It also needs to be greater than 0 and is used to calculate use fees. All right, so that's just kind of high level what those two fields mean. However, how we use those two fields will be different between utility permits and construction permits. And that is because the utility permits already has that 6-month permit expiration date. Right, so for utility permits, in order for us not to get out of whack with the permit expiration date, we're going to ask that the duration equals the total days in right-of-way. That is the intent of that 6-month permit expiration timeline. For construction permits, it's going to be a little different. Your duration is the project timeline, how long the project is moving along, is in process. It can be greater than total days in right-of-way. The total days in right-of-way, that's the new field that calculates use fees now, starting tomorrow, would be the number of days you're working in the right-of-way. So oftentimes projects don't work on weekends, they don't work on holidays. Sometimes for smaller projects, they're only working a couple days a week in the right-of-way. So let's dive into this in a little more detail. Let's talk about utility permits. So this change does not impact the rules on the permit expiration date. That remains the same. There's no change there. Right? The permit expiration date is still going to be informed by the latest use expiration date plus 6 months. How use fees are calculated are changing with the new total days in right-of-way. The duration must match the total days in right-of-way, right? If you put more days in the right-of-way here, you're getting charged more use fees that you may not need. So please make sure that this days in right-of-way is an approximation of how many days you expect to be out there for all phases of utility work within that 6-month timeline. We want that to be the same for duration so that this permit expiration date doesn't get out of whack, right? Because this informs this informs this. If you have a different day duration or days in right-of-way, we're going to change that in the back office for you. Here's a pro tip. If you are unsure about the days, how many days it takes, and I know there's lots of variables around that, please pick the highest possible number of days. And why you want to do that is because if you only say 10 days here and you end up needing 20, you then have to pay for the amendment costs and you also have to go through the amendment process, right? So just to save you time and money, choose the most amount here. Again, if you're on a non-arterial street, you get 30 days without use fees. So it just makes sense that if you're on an arterial, this is 30 days, right? Any questions there? Okay, so the duration, again, is the total number of days needed to complete the work in the right-of-way. And we want that to match the total days in right-of-way. And then the total days in right-of-way has to be greater than 0. Otherwise, what are you paying for? If you're not in the right-of-way, you probably don't need a permit. Okay, so here are some examples. Example 1 is a gas line installation. The project timeline is approximately 4 months. It requires intermittent street closures for a total of 18 days for the installation and restoration phases. The right-of-way is clear outside construction days, right? So you have duration equals 18 days. Total days and right-of-way equals 18 days. The use expiration is start date plus duration. The permit expiration is latest start date plus 6 months. If you have a larger utility permit, a gas main installation, for instance, timeline is 10 months. Requires street closures for a total of 46 days for the installation and restoration phases. The right-of-way is clear outside construction days. Again, your duration and total days are the same, 46. Use expiration is start date plus duration. Permit expiration is latest start date plus 6 months. And the latest start date just means if you have multiple uses on your utility permit, it's going to take the latest start date that you have within those groups, use code groupings and add 6 months to it. Any question on that? All right, let's talk about amendments. So here's an extension amendment. This is the simplest option here where this was your initial estimated work time here. You had 6 months to get everything as much as you can, but there were some delays, and now all of a sudden you need to start work after that 6-month permit expiration date. So this requires an extension. You'll treat this example like you would an initial permit where the total days in right-of-way equals the duration, right? So initially you had 6 days and there were some delays, and then now you need to start later. So your additional total days in right-of-way will be 8. Your new duration will be 8. Your RSD will just start from where it left off. And then the use expiration will be the new start date plus new duration. And then the new permit expiration date will be the latest use start date plus 6 months. So nothing different about the extension amendment rules. However, there is something a bit different about the revision amendment rules when you need to extend the time, the days in right-of-way within the 6-month permit expiration. So right now, we have a limit. We don't have the ability for you to ask for more time within an existing time frame. We are going to look to solve that, but that won't happen until next year. So we're going to have to do something, a little workaround to be able to facilitate that. So for this scenario, we're going to now ask that you submit a revision amendment to add more days to an existing 6-month permit expiration timeline. So you have the existing use line here, space A, initial total days equals the initial duration, right? You have the use and permit expiration dates. And the workaround here is the space, right? So the existing line is space A. The new line will need to be a different space. So space B, space C, whatever it ends up being, right? Oh, whoops, it should be 2. So then you'll put in your duration, your additional, whoops, that can be 15. Just leave it that way. Total days in right-of-way. Now this part, we will need to manually update in the back office your rate start date with this, right? Because it will tag on from your existing use line, but because you used a different space, it'll start at 1. So we'll do that calculation back here in the back office, right? And then these two should be the same because you're within the same permit expiration timeline. Well, I guess you're It depends, the use expiration will depend on your start date. So that could potentially be different, but for ease of example, it should be the same, right? So really the workaround for now, and we will work to resolve this, is if you need to extend your initial duration and total days in right-of-way within the same 6-month permit expiration, you have to use the revision amendment and you have to give it a different space identifier. That's the workaround for now. Any questions on that? That's why we really encourage you to be conservative when you're giving this duration and days in right of way within this permit expiration so you don't have to deal with this because it's complicated. Okay, let's go on to construction permits. They are a little bit different than utility permits because they do not have that 6-month permit expiration date to deal with. They are real-time type of things. Okay, so the total days in right-of-way is the actual working days in the right-of-way. Again, if you don't know for sure how many days you need, please be conservative. Like if a delivery could be coming 2 weeks or 2 days a week or 3 days a week, please choose 3. It's going to save you time and money in the long run. The duration is capturing the project timeline independent of number of days you'll be in the right-of-way. So that is the big difference between utility and construction permits. Having a longer duration does not allow the project to be using the right-of-way beyond the number of total days in right-of-way, right? So just because your duration is longer than total days in right-of-way, if you said you're only working 2 days a week and you're working 4 days a week, you need to update your permit. So this is just kind of repeating just to really hone in the concepts. So duration, you're going to enter the total number of calendar days needed to complete the work overall. This is used to calculate the use expiration date. The duration can be greater than total days in right-of-way. And then again, the total days in right-of-way is the actual number of days you're working in the right-of-way. It's used to calculate use fees. It cannot exceed duration, and it must be, excuse me, must be greater than 0. All right, so here are some examples. So there's a townhouse project on a non-arterial street. The project timeline is 6 months. It requires intermittent material deliveries 2 to 3 days a week, and the right-of-way is clear outside delivery days. So the duration is 185 days or 26 weeks. The total days in right-of-way is 78. That's because we're picking the higher number here, 3 days a week, and we're multiplying it by 26. So then the use expiration date would be start date plus duration. Another example is an office building in an urban village. The project timeline is 18 months. The project requires a sidewalk and parking lane closure 7 days a week. Peds are rerouted to the parking lane on the weekends, right? So for the sidewalk closure, they're going to need that 7 days a week. So the duration and total days in right-of-way would match. For the parking lane, it's closed during the week, but open to the traveling public on the weekends. So the duration will be the same as the sidewalk, but the total days in right-of-way will be a little bit less because it's only 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week. And then because they're rerouting, the parking lane rerouted use line would be that 2 days a week on the weekends, and so the total days in right-of-way would be less than the duration. Any question on any of that? sure we have very many construction applicants here. Okay, so let's go over some amendment rules. The extension is going to pretty much act the same as an initial permit, except the RSD is going to continue from the first use line. There's really nothing different. You'll just add the total days that you're working in the right of way and the new duration, the new RSD would automatically calculate. But again, if you're trying to add more time within a use expiration timeline, that's when we need to introduce this workaround on being able to do that under the revision amendment only and giving it a different space indicator. Right, so and then in that scenario, we would need to manually update the RSD because you gave it a different space number and it's going to start at 1. But it needs to continue from the existing use line. So with that, starting tomorrow on our How to Estimate and Pay Fees website, the use fee estimator is going to be updated with the new total days and right-of-way column here. So just a reminder, if you want to try to estimate use fees, you can do that with the new field starting tomorrow. Here's our update schedule. So the total days and right-of-way method of tracking working days and calculating use fees is starting tomorrow on November 18th. Our new hourly rate and permit fee updates will start on January 1st, 2022. Okay, I wanted to highlight some help articles. We have a new one called What Happens After Amendment is Issued. We wanted to write this because we were sensing some confusion on how the amendment interacts with the initial permit, which we call the parent permit, right? So this help article really goes over that relationship and what the amendment is and what the general process is. This help article is in addition to the date change, extension, revision, amendment help articles, and this information has been added to those as well, right? So the relationship between the initial and amendment has been added to these help articles. Just really quickly, your initial permit is the parent permit. Any amendment that you request off of that parent permit always goes back to that parent permit. So if you initiate an amendment, we will process the amendment. Once we're done processing it, once it's issued, it will copy all the information over to the parent permit and the amendment gets closed, right? It only lives during processing. What changes can I make on my street use application or permit is relatively new. This help article provides guidance on how to do the following in the portal: submit updated documents after the application has been submitted, submit an amendment request, submit a job start notification, and schedule inspections after the initial inspection has been passed, and pay fees on your application or permit. Okay, just want to remind everyone that we now have one-on-one virtual coaching options available between the hours of 10:30 and noon and 1 and 3 p.m. You can either request a virtual one-on-one meeting or a phone meeting. To request virtual coaching, you can email us at s.permits@seattle.gov or call the street use phone line at 206-684-5253. We do schedule an appointment for these, so you can always call after these before or after these hours to get something scheduled for that day or the next day. Okay, this just goes over how to get help. We have our help articles or our websites are really where we want people to start. If you've never applied for a street use permit, these websites really walk you through the whole process and how it interacts with Accela. But remember, Accela is really the end point. It's after you've done all your work and you're ready to actually submit for a permit. And just a reminder that you can get to the portal on all our websites on the right panel of the webpage. We are continually updating and adding new help articles. So please get really familiar with this permit-street use section if you're not already there. These help articles really help you navigate Accela. And if you still need answers, you're not finding, we still have our portal support email here to get information about portal navigation, contact cleanup, help on responding to corrections, uploading documents, scheduling inspections, whatever. Or if you think an error has occurred in the portal, that's where we want you to send that information to. You can email us at s.permits for more of the business process stuff if you have general inquiries or coaching, contact changes for permits or amendments in process, application changes for unassigned records, fee disputes, that's where you'll send that information. And then if you're having portal account issues, that needs to go to IT. Okay, well, that's really all I had today. Do we have any questions?
Very quiet contingency.
Um, so on our outreach efforts, so we have our monthly newsletter. We're going through the SCCI newsletter. There will be a website notice and a listserv notice. So anyone who's applied for a street use permit within 15 months will get an email notice. Okay, and then there's a question about the duration and total days in right of way won't be added together. Right, they are two different fields. So if you enter 5 days, the charge will be for 5 days. That's right. For total days in right of way, if you enter 5 days and you're on an arterial street, your use fees will only be charged for that 5 days. Because remember, non-arterial streets don't incur use fees for 30 days. So again, if it's a non-arterial street, please just use 30 days. It saves everyone so much time. Okay, there's a question here. Not sure what the question is about closing out the permit. All the inspection rules are automatic. So if your use expiration expires, or for utility permits, your permit expiration, right, Tina? The inspector will get an inspection to go out and check on your date. But however, if you're needing something sooner or later, because sometimes inspectors can't get to all of their inspections because there's a lot of them. So if you're not getting any response, feel free to email the inspector and say, hey, I need to get this permit closed, and then they'll prioritize that. Let me know if you have any more questions on that. Yeah, you still get charged for those final inspections, regardless of if you're out there or not. and regardless of when they get out there. Right. They're kind of in the dark a little bit on when you guys are actually working or not working, right? We have lots of expired permits out there with people still working. So, in order for you to give them the most current information, you have to email them or use um, schedule an inspection in the portal. There is no final inspection option, but there is a site inspection option you could use. Or I would just email the inspector, to be quite honest, to close your permit out. Any other questions? Oh, someone wants me to elaborate on the use and occupation fees and what activities that include when you have a SEC. So I think we went over that for use fees. I didn't go into occupation fees in general, but those are the encroachments. So if you have a building in the right of way or, a large wall or, a tunnel underneath the right of way, that's the kind of thing that gets charged occupation fees. Sky bridges. Inspection fees are the hourly rates. That is not included in the issuance fees. For the right-of-way M and public space management permits, the issuance fee includes review time, but it does not include inspection time. That's because it's too variable. So if you get charged an inspection, you will be charged an hourly rate service fee. And those are always billed. Review and inspection time is always billed. I don't know what you mean by capture that cost. If you go to our how to estimate and pay permit fees website, there is some general information on how to estimate fees. If this final inspection is months after the project ends, I'm sorry, I'm just going to encourage you to let the inspector know when you're done with your project. Please email them, and then you won't have this issue. Typically, inspections are half an hour, so you will take the hourly rate and divide it by 2, and that's how you can estimate that. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, we're going to post this PowerPoint and this recording on our website. I also have this information in the next Street Use monthly newsletter. We'll also be at the Master Builders Association, the Associated General Contractors meetings, and we'll engage with our public utilities as well. So we are going to be doing a lot more outreach between now and January 1st. So this information is available publicly now. The budget won't get adopted most likely till next week, but we're pretty confident that these are the final fees. Okay, everyone, thanks for your time. Thanks for coming. This is our last webinar for this year, but we will continue these quarterly webinars next year. So hopefully I'll see you guys next year. Have a good holiday season and Happy New Year, everyone.